Okay, good morning, Mr. Kenneth. Welcome to this brief interview, and it's called the Hummingbird Challenge. So, like I mentioned in my earlier message to you, I'm currently a student at ALX. I'm studying Salesforce administration. And as part of the requirement to move on to the next stage of my classes, I am expected to have this interview. What or who is a hummingbird? So a hummingbird is someone who is making a difference in their sphere, in their community, no matter how little that difference is. The fact that you're doing something to make the world a much better place. And of course, being someone I know personally, immediately I saw that you were one of the names that dropped into my mind. And that is why I have requested for this interview. So thank you very much for indulging me. Thank you for your time. So we're going to move into this. Okay, so I don't take too much of your time. We're going to move in straight into the interview proper. And of course, we're going to start off by introducing yourself. So we would like to meet you. We would like to know your name and any other thing you feel you'd want us to know about you.
Okay, let me start by, my name is Kenneth Igiri, and even though many people say it sounds like a Kenyan name, I'm actually a Nigerian. I was born to Igbo parents in the late 1970s. I grew up largely in Lagos. I became a follower of Jesus in 1991. I studied engineering in school, but I became a technician after school, an information technologist. So we don't call that engineering, it's technology. All right. I'm currently,
okay.
So I've been through the works in IT for about almost 2 decades, and I'm currently what you call an enterprise architect. So I try to reconcile from a strategic perspective, the business with IT. When I'm not doing that on weekends, I do something I call strategy coaching for small businesses and for young people who are emerging in life. So that's generally about me.
Okay, so you mentioned that you grew up in Lagos, but from a personal information I have, I know you currently reside in Ghana. So at what point did you make that transition from Lagos to Ghana?
Okay, the transition was the result of, I will call it poaching, so to speak. So someone got a call and said, do you know somebody who knows SQL Server? SQL Server is a database technology, delivered by Microsoft. And I had been doing studies in that area about 2009 to 2010, little work. So back in 2011, that offer came. And it was an offer that came from a bank, an African bank in Ghana, and they wanted me to move from Nigeria to Ghana. That is how I moved in January 2012 to take up that role.
Okay, yes. So yes, you mentioned strategic coaching, which is an aspect of you. I think that's the aspect of you I am more conversant with. And I think that is the aspect that has warranted this interview. So I would want you to shed more light on that, as in how does the strategic coaching, how does it impact the larger society where you have found yourself?
Great. All right. So I call it strategy coaching. So a lot of people you meet, they'll tell you they're life coach or business coach. I try not to call myself a business coach because these days, people will typically ask you, how many businesses have you started? Are you an entrepreneur? And they forget that they went to 5 years of school to listen to a professor who has never made any money on economics, right? And they actually paid for it. So, but in my case, I call it strategy coaching because that is the experience that I have. I have experience from at least 3 fronts on the area. Number one, my experience in the corporate environment. I've been in corporates across many sectors of the corporates, from telco to banking to ISP. And I've also been through service management, customer experience, application support, database support, and now enterprise architecture. So I've seen diverse perspectives. One you are with a large corporate, you know about business processes, you know about how technology aligns with business, you know about what it takes to structure an organization. So in a corporate environment, you get exposed to different dimensions of how a business runs, of how a corporate environment runs, of how processes run, how teams are structured, how projects are implemented and all of that. And I had exposure to that from both the telco side, the banking side, and a smaller business, which was an ISP. I've had exposure in terms of education. I did my MBA later down the line, a whole lot of courses here and there, both mini and macro MBAs. So I began to ask myself, what do I do with all this knowledge? I mean, what do I do with it? Is there somebody that needs me? So I now said to myself, okay, I listened to a note that talked about one step ahead. The fact that there's always somebody who you are one step ahead that you can help. So I decided to position myself with emerging entrepreneurs in Africa. When I say emerging, that means that person is trying to start up something. He's trying to find his footing. He doesn't know the basics about the business process. He doesn't know the basics about how to use simple technology cost effectively to drive their business. He doesn't know, more importantly, strategy. Strategy is about positioning, is about identifying who you are and knowing where best you can play in the industry. So I began to hone my craft around that. I developed a system or a program called the interactive ideation session. I tried to make it very cost effective compared to many other coaching engagements out there, because I wanted to deal with very small scale emerging entrepreneurs. And I then launched the Kabila community, which is basically a free platform where people get to learn about business, a whole lot of learning that people typically charge for. But I decided to share this because I feel this is my contribution to those emerging, to those coming up. And I want to say that the strategy tools, the strategy techniques are relevant for your career growth. They are relevant for your business growth. So that's why it's not a business coaching kind of thing. It's a strategy coaching. How do you position yourself to win? How do you identify yourself and place yourself in the market you find yourself in such a way that you are excelling wherever you are starting from? So that's basically a little about how that came about. Yeah.
Okay, so you took the words out of my mouth, because my next question was going to be, tell us about Kabila. So already we have heard about Kabila, and we have heard about how Kabila is making a positive impact. And okay, for the benefit of those who will watch my recording later, I am a proud member of the Kabila community, and that is why I have brought my coach here, because I have benefited immensely from Kabila community. It has helped me even in my small scale business, which I do by the side despite working a 9-to-5. So it has helped me manage it. And apart from that, I've also been a beneficiary of the community fund. So that for me is a huge impact and part of the reason why we are here this morning. So what inspired you to start Kabila? I know you have given a little hint, but I want a more detailed explanation of what inspires you. What is your why? What fuels you to give out all the free knowledge you give out? What fuels you to think about the emerging community? And in between, you can talk about that petition you have been championing since the beginning of this year.
Awesome. Thank you, Chisom. And we are very proud and happy to have the likes of you in the Kabila community. So Kabila is a lot of people want to know what it means. Is it Joseph Kabila? It's definitely not Joseph Kabila. It's a Swahili word for tribe, right? It's the Swahili word for tribe. And the reason why we call it a tribe is because we're saying these are a small group of people with common interests, interest in growth. Individually, they may not have as much power as they want to have. Individually, they may not have as much influence as they want to have. But collectively, we can help each other grow. Collectively, we can share knowledge and we can network. And Kabila community is focused on people interested in locally made goods in Africa, locally made consumer goods, because we felt that consumer goods we have an advantage in consumer goods in Africa. We don't have an advantage in technology. We don't have an advantage in engineering, but we have an advantage in consumer goods. Consumer goods meaning processed food. We have some original stuff that the world needs to hear about. An advantage in clothing, because we have some original stuff that we need to now move from raw material to finished goods and export to the world. So we felt we have an advantage there. And we also have an advantage in terms of intra-Africa trade. Many people are trying to sell stuff to the US and UK. Meanwhile, Togo is next door to you and they don't know what you're doing. And so forth. So thankfully, the likes of AFCTA are here to help us with that. Now, so Kabila is a tribe, a community of consumer goods entrepreneurs. And what inspired us was we needed to find a way to include those who are playing at a very low level, if you like. And our community is founded on values such as variety, veracity, and vibrancy. We know Africa is difficult, right? But we need to motivate people to be tenacious, to be resilient. We need to help them sometimes motivate with money, with some of our programs like the Kabila Community Fund, like the opportunities to write for us and earn money and all that, to motivate people, keep people going. And so that they can really deliver on their assignment as emerging entrepreneurs. So we also give a platform where we do a lot of learning, a lot of teaching on Clubhouse, on our WhatsApp, in Kabila community workshops, to make sure that people have the knowledge they need to move their craft from here to here, to really raise their game in terms of customer experience, in terms of using simple technology they don't have to pay too much for, in terms of strategizing, in terms of recording, having records of how their business is done. So we do a lot of that. A lot of it is free, some are paid. For example, the interactive ideation session is paid, but then most of the content is actually free because we know who we're dealing with. It's this small tribe. Individually, we don't have that much strength, but collectively as a tribe, we can support each other, get our message of marketing out to the wider world on WhatsApp. We can support each other, give information across boundaries. We can support each other even by exchanging goods and services across boundaries. So that's the vision, and we really want to help those who cannot afford much more expensive coaching programs, and then probably pass them on to those programs when they grow big enough or sophisticated enough to go on, to move on. Yeah, that's basically about Kabila.
That's so impressive. That's so inspiring. So do you consider yourself a creative problem solver? And if yes, I would like to know why.
Okay, yeah, I think I do. First of all, I've said my background is in IT. When you're working as an IT person, as a support person, you have to be creative. We have something called workarounds, which means you see a problem, nobody has designed a solution for it. There's probably no solution yet. You probably have to reach out to a vendor. Then you ask yourself, what else can I do to give the customer respite while the big solution is coming? So that's a workaround. Most of the time, you have to use workarounds. You have to creatively think of how to address this problem and give respite to the customer. Then, when I grew into strategic coaching, one of my core areas of focus is what I call simple technology for small business. For example, a lot of us, we are already familiar with, you're familiar with Zoom, you're familiar with Google Forms, you're familiar with ChatGPT, you're familiar with all these different tools, but you don't know how to put them together to actually create value. And that's what we do in enterprise architecture. Being able to think about your context, being able to take the different resources that are available to you and then address the problem you are facing, right? Face your reality in a cost-effective manner. For you to do all that, I have to be creative in my thinking. I have to, when I sit with somebody in the interactive ideation session, in that session, I have to come up with ideas. I have to come up with a strategy based on what the person tells me about themselves, based on what I extract using strategy tools like SWOT and the BMC. I have to be able to put things together and craft the next, the architecture for the next phase of their business. That requires a lot of creative thinking. There are no, when you're playing at a certain level in business, there are no easy solutions. You have to be creative. There are no ready-made solutions. It's not like the corporates. So when I take the theories of the corporates, I want to transform them, simplify them in a way that makes sense to the orange seller by the roadside, as low as that, to the tailor by trying to boom his business, to the person trying to ask, how does social media help my business? How does forms help my business? How does any other tool out there, as sophisticated as they are, how can I leverage them? So I have to be creative, and I think I am creative in that sense.
Wow, that's an impressive answer. So the next question will be, where do your ideas come from? Then as a follow-up question to that, I want to ask, as in, how do you stay positive? What keeps you going? As a member of the Kabila community, sometimes I see you post, very, really powerful nuggets, very, really powerful tips, very, really powerful tools. And sometimes, considering the number of people on the platform, compared to the responses you get on that particular post, it can be very discouraging for some people. Like, why bother? It seems they are not appreciating what I am giving and all. So, but what keeps you going? Because I still see you, even after that, you keep showing up, you keep coming up with more ways, more ideas on how to get everybody more involved. So where do you get your ideas from, and how do you stay positive? What keeps you going? What fuels you?
Awesome. That's a very good question. And the answer, part of the answer, especially to the second question, is resilience. And that is the attitude I actually want to imbibe in many young entrepreneurs who are facing severe difficulties running their business, right? Resilience, being able to stay on course, having a sense of purpose, being able to say, this is where I'm going, and I'm going there whether you choose to come with me or not. And you see, there are two things. The principles I share, I have seen them work in my life. So I know that the problem is not with the knowledge or the principles, right? And I also get feedback from those who have taken the time to implement, to go the journey. Anything that you're going to do in this world that is worth something requires that you go through a process, that you go through a journey, right? And so I'm willing to go through that journey with anybody who is willing to come with me. So I try to stay positive because I can see clearly that there is an end in sight. And sometimes I do have to motivate myself. I do have to use affirmations. I do have to pray and trust God. I do have to keep reconnecting and realizing that, look, this is a calling. There is a gift I have to release to the world. It may not be to 1 million people. It may be to 50 people. But my assignment is to release it. So I stay on course saying, look, I keep giving it out until the right set of people who are supposed to take that knowledge and move with it come up. And I want to say that quite a few people have gone through my programs. Some of them have gone through it to the extent that I feel they don't even need me anymore. And that is growth. So when you see such people, you're inspired to keep impacting. When you get the feedback, you're inspired to keep impacting. When you get the inspiration, it dawns on you that this is not for you. This insight, this knowledge, this wisdom, it can't be for you alone. So you have to find a way to communicate it, to share it, to expose it to the world. So, generally, that's it.
Wow, that's a really beautiful one. Like, I'm inspired already, because like I said, it can be very discouraging when you're trying to help people, when you're trying to give back to people, and it seems you're being met with a brick wall. And that brings me to my final question for this interview. So yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I am running a training program at ALX, and our motto, or our slogan is do hard things. And trust me, it has been really hard. The drilling has been hard. But then a lot of beautiful things come from doing very hard things. So for someone like me, I have so much I'm grappling with. So in addition to my ALS program, there is motherhood, there is marriage, there is a 9 to 5, there is a business. and so many things. There's the spiritual commitment and all that. So what advice do you have for me? How do I stay on course, and how do I go that extra mile? Yesterday Guinness World Record recognized Hilda as the latest record holder for the Phuket that she held. And we noticed that a whooping 7 hours was reduced from the total 100 hours she initially did. So she was awarded about 93 hours thereabouts. And that got me to question myself, what if she had just stopped at the level of just enough? I beat the current record holder at maybe, the former record holder was about 89 minutes approximately. So imagine she had stopped at 90, for example, and say, I've beaten the current record, and they now deduct that 7 hours. That will have taken her back to square one, and all her efforts will have been drained. But she pushed herself. She originally planned to do 96 hours. She ended up doing 100 hours. So I'm sure that played a major role, because if she had stopped at the 96, it would still have affected her overall results. So how do I stay on course? How do I push to go the extra mile?
Wow, that's awesome. And the harder it gets, the tougher, your muscles become toughened. You become better at what you're trying to do. You become stronger for the next assignment. That is the asset, the capital you're building for your next level. Every time when you go, for example, to your next assignment in life, the story you have built by being engaged is what you're going to take to that next level. And I keep telling people, especially young people, that look, when you are young, that's the best time to accumulate that muscle, to accumulate that energy, to accumulate that mental capacity for the future. Accumulate it. That's when you have opportunity to make mistakes, right? That's when you have the strength to exert yourself. So you just have to ask yourself, first of all, you do have to take up a position. You do have to have a vision. You have to say, okay, where am I going? All these things I'm involved in, how are they adding up to where I'm going? That has to be clear. Once it is clear, keep engaging yourself, keep gaining experience. The world is moving so fast, so we cannot afford to be docile. If there's nothing to do in one area, you will want to find what you need to do in the other area to keep fine-tuning your muscles, honing your expertise, and preparing yourself for the future. So do hard things. Definitely do hard things. Find something that stretches you, that stretches your brain, your capacity, your mental capacity, that stretches you physically, because that is how you build capacity. That is how you prepare for the future that you have decided to go on the journey on. So let me stop there for now.
Wow, that was really, really helpful. I really, really enjoyed my session with you. And I really appreciate your time, Mr. Kenneth, as in at really short notice, you were able to squeeze out some time to honor this invitation. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And yes, keep doing the wonderful work you're doing with Kabila. I am one of your fans and I am rooting for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chisom. I'm happy to have had this session, and all the best with ALX and the Hummingbird Challenge.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Bye.
You too. Bye.